The ridgeline wind cut sharp, but Sparrow's radio hissed sharper. Rachel Morgan pressed her body flat against the rocky slope, the metal of her binoculars biting cold against her cheek despite the afternoon sun baking the valley below. It was 1430 hours, light blazing westward, shadows long across the ground. Through the dry grass and broken stone, she could see the movement of her own battalion creeping forward in staggered columns, unaware of the vantage from which she now watched. Staff Sergeant James Pike crawled up beside her, breath steady but edged with disapproval. His scarred cheek twitched when he spoke. "Keep your head down, rookie. Your job's to watch, not to get spotted." The words stung more than she admitted. She had earned her place, but still they treated her like a tag-along student, too green to matter. Behind them, Ortega shifted his pack with an exaggerated grunt. "Hey, Pike, don't scare her off before she's even had a chance to prove herself," he said, grinning. "Besides, we could use a set of fresh eyes that aren't jaded." His humor lightened the tension, if only a little. Rachel ignored them, adjusting her rangefinder. The lens clicked as she measured the stretch of valley floor, 1,600 meters to the far tree line. She murmured numbers into her recorder, bearing after bearing, distances, and faint traces of tracks in the earth. Routine. At least that's how the others saw it. Pike scoffed under his breath. Nothing new. Enemy ghosts, just shadows. She didn't argue. She never did. Her job was to observe, nothing more. But the longer she scanned, the less it felt like shadows. The tree line was too still. Patches of brush leaned against the slope at awkward angles, almost as if they had been arranged. And then she saw it. A thin glint of light, the unmistakable reflection of sun on steel, quickly swallowed back by camouflage netting. Her breath caught. She shifted slightly, checked again. There it was, half hidden in brush that looked too uniform to be natural. Barrel shape, heavy, wide bore, artillery, aimed straight at the valley where her battalion crawled forward, blissfully unaware. Her fingers tightened around the radio handset. Static murmured against her palm, the hum of connection just waiting for her voice. She swallowed, glanced at Pike. He was studying his map, uninterested. Ortega raised an eyebrow as if sensing her unease. "What do you see, Sparrow?" he asked. She hesitated only a second. Then she pressed the transmit. "Sparrow to Hammer Actual. Grid. 17, Sierra, 64, 29er 8821. Possible artillery emplacement, 1.6 clicks northeast." The reply came calm, almost bored. "Hammer Actual copies. Continue observation. Report if confirmed." Her gut twisted. That was as good as dismissal. She tried again, voice firmer. "Sparrow to Hammer Actual. Visual confirmation. Multiple barrels under netting. Tree line bearing 095. Recommend caution." Another pause, longer this time. Finally, "Hammer Actual. Roger." "Noted. Continue mission." She lowered the radio, frustration burning in her chest. "Noted." The word felt like a brick dropped into a deep well. Pike gave a dry laugh. "There you go. Command says it's nothing." His tone was dismissive, but she caught the flicker of doubt in his eyes. Even Ortega, usually ready with another joke, was silent. Rachel wanted to shout, to force them to see what she saw, but the weight of orders pressed her down. Observe only. Do not engage. Do not interfere. The minutes dragged. She kept her eyes locked on the tree line, noting every twitch of movement. A flock of birds rose suddenly, disturbed by something deeper within. The brush shifted slightly as though machinery churned beneath it. Sweat slid down her temple, stinging her eyes. Through the headset, the steady murmur of battalion chatter rolled on, calm and unaware. They were walking straight into a killing ground. She adjusted her focus, pulse quickening. 2 more barrels revealed themselves, barely visible under the dappled shade. Her notes filled with frantic numbers, bearings, elevations, ranges. She whispered them aloud, as if saying them might make them more real. Each new detail confirmed the picture forming in her mind, an ambush perfectly set. A wall of artillery that, once unleashed, would cut the battalion apart before they had time to scatter. She pressed transmit again. Sparrow to Hammer actual. Multiple enemy tubes confirmed. Suggest immediate adjustment of route. The silence this time was worse than denial. When the voice came back, it was flat, clipped, a man too busy to argue. Roger, continue observation. Rachel's hand shook as she set the handset down. She stared across the valley, sun glaring off her optics. The battalion was still moving, line after line of helmets and packs threading through the low ground. From up here they looked small, fragile like ants marching toward a trap. She wanted to scream across the distance to make them turn back, but her voice was lost in the crackle of command hierarchy. Orders had spoken. She was just the observer. Nothing more. Pike leaned back against the rocks, pretending ease. "Don't tear yourself up, kid. Command knows best. They wouldn't ignore you if it mattered." He said it like a man trying to convince himself. Ortega didn't laugh this time. He only muttered, "Sometimes they don't listen until it's too late." His eyes lingered on the tree line with a gravity Rachel hadn't seen before. The wind picked up, rattling grass along the slope, filling the silence. Rachel gripped the rangefinder again, aligning the reticle on one camouflaged gun. Her breath steadied, eyes narrowed. She knew what she had seen. She knew the danger. Dismissed or not, she would keep watching. She would not look away. For if those barrels roared to life, she might be the only one who could call warning in time. And as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the valley, Rachel's unease hardened into certainty. The hillside was alive with hidden teeth, waiting to bite, and only she had glimpsed them. The valley floor was quiet enough to hear a canteen rattle, right before the first shell landed. The valley floor was quiet enough to hear a canteen rattle, right before the first shell landed. Rachel Morgan's heart lurched as the ground erupted 100 meters short of the Lid platoon. Dust billowed, soldiers ducked instinctively, their movement jerking from steady patrol to panicked scatter. Through her scope on the ridgeline, Rachel saw helmets vanish behind berms, rifles clutched tight. The calm rhythm of the march shattered in a heartbeat. "Contact, contact," Pike barked, pressing his chest into the dirt beside her. His voice was steady, but his jaw flexed like a steel trap. Ortega cursed under his breath, scrambling to adjust his radio. Rachel stayed locked on the tree line, eyes wide but focused. She had seen the barrels before anyone else. She had warned them. Now the guns had spoken. Another shell screamed in, this time overshooting, plowing into the far edge of the valley floor. Perfect bracketing. They were zeroing in. She knew what would come next. A rain of steel, a kill box with her entire battalion trapped inside. Her fingers dug into the handset. Sparrow to Hammer, actual, enemy artillery firing, multiple rounds, grid, 17, Sierra, 6-4, 29er 8821. Static snapped back, followed by a clipped voice, Hammer actual copies. Stay observing, battalion moving to cover. Her chest burned. Moving to cover? There was no cover. The valley floor was open, flat, a bowl for incoming fire. Through her lens she saw soldiers huddle in shallow ditches, weapons shaking in their hands. Another salvo rained down, closer, explosions straddling the columns like jaws closing. She whispered, "They'll be slaughtered." Her throat felt dry, voice barely reaching her own ears. Pike gave a grim nod, eyes never leaving the chaos below. Ortega keyed the mic, voice sharp. "Hammer, this is Echo. Be advised, they're locked in the pocket. Recommend immediate air support." Silence. Then the cold reply. "Roger. Wait. Wait." Rachel wanted to hurl the handset into the rocks. Every second was blood. She forced herself to steady her breathing, forced her eyes back to the scope. The glints in the tree line weren't just artillery barrels now. She spotted loaders moving, teams shifting under camouflage, reloading with practiced speed. The next volley would not miss. Another concussion shook the ground. Soldiers stumbled, one man falling flat and unmoving, his squad dragging him back by his straps. Dust clouds cloaked the valley, making Rachel's view grainy and desperate. Her stomach churned. Orders said, "Observe only," but the truth screamed louder. If she didn't act, they would die. She pressed transmit again, overriding doubt. Sparrow, to Hammer Actual. Enemy tubes are walking fire on Battalion grid. Request, immediate CAS, priority 1. Nothing, just a hiss of static, then the same infuriating calm. Roger, continue observation. Her hand trembled. She looked to Pike. His lips pressed thin, his silence an answer of its own. Ortega shook his head, sweat slick on his temple. They're not listening. Not fast enough. Rachel's breath came ragged, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. Her mind narrowed to one truth. She could follow the chain, stay silent, and watch the battalion vanish in fire. Or she could break every rule, seize the net, and pray someone higher was listening. She knew which choice her gut demanded. She yanked the radio close, fingers dialing past her assigned channel. The line crackled alive, different voices cutting in and out, chatter from beyond the battalion net. She steadied her tone. "This is Sparrow, forward observer, eyes on enemy artillery grid. 17 Sierra 6 42 Niner 8821. I need CAS immediately." For a heartbeat, there was only white hiss. Then a new voice, calm but commanding. "Falcon to Sparrow, this is Madge. Holt, confirm target description." Relief surged so sharp she nearly cried. She steadied her scope, voice precise. "Enemy artillery, multiple tubes under camo netting, bearing 095, range 1.6 clicks." Copy crackled back, steady as stone. Falcon copies. Aircraft on station. Confirm with target smoke when ready. Rachel's hand shook, but her voice was iron now. "Roger, Falcon. Stand by for mark." Pike turned to her, eyes wide. "You just bypassed the chain of command." His words weren't accusation, but awe. Ortega grinned despite the hell around them. About damn time someone did. Below, the battalion scrambled, men and women running for patches of broken earth that would never hold against sustained fire. Shells landed closer, blasts throwing bodies to the ground. Dust choked the valley, the air alive with shrapnel and fear. And yet above it, the faint distant roar of engines was rising, low and building. Help was coming. Rachel kept her scope fixed on the guns, lips tight, determination carved in every line of her face. She had crossed the line, taken the risk. Now she would see it through. The choice was made. She would guide fire down on the threat, or she would die watching her battalion burn. The battlefield air split wide as the first jet screamed overhead. Rachel Morgan pressed herself low against the rocks, headset pressed tight against her ear. The roar seemed to rip the sky in two, a sound at once terrifying and strangely comforting. For the first time since the valley erupted in fire, she wasn't alone with her warning. Somewhere above, steel wings carried the promise of survival. It was 1,507 hours. The sun was tilting hard west, throwing jagged shadows across the low ground where the battalion had been caught. Smoke hung thick, burned cordite and dust clinging to every breath. Below, men scrambled for cover, scattered like ants under glass. She knew their lives depended on every word she spoke into the handset. "Falcon, this is Sparrow," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Target, grid, 17, Sierra 6429, 8821. Enemy artillery, 1.6 clicks northeast, popping smoke." Her fingers found the canister on her vest. With a sharp twist and toss, the bright plume hissed up from the rocks below. Purple smoke unfurled against the gray haze, a fragile signal in the chaos. "Sparrow, Falcon copies. Visual on smoke. Stand by for strafing run." She ducked, heart hammering as the first A-10 swept low. The cannon erupted in its unmistakable growl, a storm of shells stitching the ridge line. Earth geysered up where enemy barrels had hidden hours before, now exposed by her rangefinder, her stubborn insistence. The ridge fought back. From camouflaged pits, the enemy gunners spat fire into the sky, tracers clawing at the jet's belly. The Warthog pulled up, banking hard, only to dive again. Rachel steadied the handset, her voice cutting through static. "Falcon, adjust left 200, drop 50. Target is still active." "Roger, inbound." The second run thundered closer, danger close by any doctrine. She felt the blast wash against her chest as if her ribs had turned hollow. Rock chips peppered her helmet. Still she clung to the handset, eyes locked on the tree line, calling corrections with a precision that surprised even her. Below, Pike and Ortega huddled behind broken shale. Ortega looked up once, eyes wide as if seeing her for the first time. Not the rookie who scribbled bearings, but the soldier holding the line between survival and slaughter. The next pass tore the hillside open. Flames licked from shattered camo nets, black smoke curling high. Artillery barrels toppled like felled trees. The enemy line, so carefully hidden, crumbled under the relentless cascade of fire. Sparrow, Falcon. Enemy artillery destroyed. Cleanup pass inbound. You're clearing the valley. Relief surged so hard her knees nearly gave out. She crouched low, headset slipping, hand trembling as she caught it. Below, the battalion was regrouping, shaken but moving, survivors pulling each other from craters and dragging stretchers to safer ground. Through the ringing haze, a voice crackled on her comm. "Hammer, actual to Sparrow. Copy all. Good work." Captain Raines's tone was clipped, formal, but softer at the edges than she'd ever heard. He didn't say it plain, not in so many words, but she felt it. Recognition, respect. She had crossed some invisible line. Rachel sank back against the ridge, chest heaving. Smoke burned her eyes, sweat plastered her hair. For hours she'd been the doubted observer, the one ordered to keep quiet, to mark and report. Now, with her words alone, she had brought steel from the sky and carved survival from certain death. The battlefield fell into uneasy quiet. The last echo of cannon fire rolled away across the hills, leaving only the hiss of smoke and the faint groans of the wounded. She pressed her forehead to the rock, whispering a prayer she hadn't planned. When she lifted her head, the valley below was moving again. Tired boots trudging past blackened barrels, soldiers lifting their weapons high in silent thanks. They would go on, shaken but alive, because one call had carried through the chaos. She exhaled slowly, the weight settling in her chest. She wasn't just an observer anymore. She was Sparrow, the one who had spoken when silence would have meant death. And somewhere deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning.